A QR code is going to be required for vaccine passports. Vaccine passports, the government had planned to drop them by mid-January. That is gone. They are going to keep them indefinitely. And then there are concerns about the Omicron variant. Indoor gatherings at the holiday period, but I'm not going to steal Megan Fitzpatrick's thunder. She's been listening along with me. So, Megan, a lot to cover. Do you want to start with vaccine passports and the QR code and some of those details, and then I'll ask you some questions on Omicron and holiday plans.
And the holidays, maybe, I think, because a lot of people preparing for that. But yes, let's start with the vaccine passport issue. So as we expected, the government announcing they will not hit that target of lifting the requirements in mid-January. So for the foreseeable future, Ontarians will still have to show that proof of vaccination to gain entry to a bar, restaurant, sports facility, bingo hall, casino hall. They had said all along that that was the target, and they wouldn't lift those restrictions if there were concerns around public health indicators. And there are. Case counts on the rise here in Ontario. So government not feeling comfortable lifting those requirements in mid-January. And they didn't set another new target, Andrew. So those are in place for the time being. And they are going to strengthen how people show their proof of vaccination in this province. And people now, starting January 4th, will be required to show the QR code that people will have to download from the provincial government website. I know there was confusion when this first launched. It's not an app that individuals use. The app that is used is for the businesses to scan the QR code that people have to show. And people can download the QR code to their phone and then show it on their phone, and the business scans it. Or you can print out a paper copy of the QR code. And Christine Elliott did acknowledge there, not everyone's comfortable with technology. Not everyone has a smartphone. And so important for people in Ontario to know, maybe get someone to help you if you need it, print out a copy of the QR code, and you can show the paper copy, and businesses have to accept that. What's also key here, though, Andrew, is the businesses using the app to scan the QR code to ensure that it's an authentic QR code. All of this, and part of the reason they're making this change, is because people have been using fake vaccine passports, replicating the vaccine receipt, which anyone can do with a basic Google Doc or Word document. They could make a fake one, and that has been happening in Ontario. And so they are now going to take away that option of using the vaccine receipt and require the QR code. They are giving some people time to adjust to this. Again, it doesn't go into effect until January 4th. They did talk about increasing enforcement on the business side, ensuring that businesses are actually scanning the QR code, not just looking at it, but actually scanning it. And
is that a requirement,
that circles
Megan?
back to a question, though, of...
Is that a requirement to
it
scan?
sounded like Kieran Moore was asked that, and he said that is their direction. So it sounds to me like perhaps the businesses could face some consequences, yes, if they are not scanning the QR code. Now, we have heard from some smaller businesses that not all employees the businesses aren't necessarily going to purchase a whole bunch of smartphones just so they can download an app to scan the QR code or an iPad or whatever technology. For bigger businesses, maybe that's not a problem and they can afford to, but for smaller businesses, that could be an issue. And Kieran Moore was asked, is the government going to help these businesses out to buy this technology? He said he's not aware of any subsidies. It would have been nice to hear from Christine Elliott on that issue, because if they are going to be required to have the technology to scan the QR code, not just look at the QR code with their own eyes, then the government might be under some pressure to help out some businesses to do that.
That's not Dr. Moore's decision. That is a government decision on resourcing that. Yeah. Do you want to talk about... I know you want to talk about...
It clearly seems like they're concerned about fraud, so...
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very disappointing to hear that people would do that. Very disappointing. But let's talk about Omicron, then we can talk about the holidays, because there was some interesting bits of information there from Dr. Moore about kind of the concerns around the Omicron variant.
Yeah, and he talked about some modeling that he got from Ontario Public Health just today, with a prediction that Omicron will take over as the dominant variant for from Delta by I think he said the beginning of January. So that's only a couple of weeks from now. And he did say they're making preparations for that. And he was saying it does seem, it's still early, they're still learning about this new variant, but that it does seem like it is more transmissible than the Delta variant. And the Delta variant is very transmissible. And he indicated that they will be making some changes because of the Omicron variant, particularly in long-term care homes. He didn't really indicate what, but he did indicate there'd be some news to come to do with long-term care homes. And another thing with the Omicron variant, he was getting some questions about schools, right? That's what I was about to get into before we went live to that news conference. A lot of parents, I think, getting anxious about whether schools might close down a bit early before the holidays or stay closed after the holidays. And he said, at present, that's not their plan, that they want to stick to the holiday schedule. But he always, he added the caveat, right, that they are monitoring things closely. And he said, we will review things, and that Omicron could change things. Yep. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully those schools stay open. But it's hard for them to sort of flat out make commitments when they really don't know what's going to happen with case numbers, depending on how quickly Omicron spreads.
And then you want to talk about holidays, because lots of people have plans. And I know we keep talking about it every day, but the situation, the COVID situation, changes every day. It changes, it seems like, almost every few hours. So then it starts to become, like, this news conference wasn't a planned news conference. It was something that was somewhat last minute.
Well, he usually does his weekly briefings on Thursdays, right. And he didn't have it on Thursday. Okay. Yesterday, we learned that it would get pushed to today. Okay. So that was an indication to us that there were some talks going on and some decisions being made, and that's why the news conference was pushed to today. And he did give us a bit more of his advice for holiday gatherings. He's started talking about this a few weeks ago, and the government actually has put a document online on their website about holiday gatherings. Now, I mean, his main point there, Andrew, is you have to make an individual risk assessment for whatever your situation might be and whatever your holiday plans are. I mean, the current restrictions in Ontario are a maximum of 25 people, technically, for a private indoor social gathering, and 100 people outdoors. Some parts of Ontario, some local public health units have already put in place their own restrictions and dropped that down, telling people to only have a maximum of 10 people for social indoor gatherings. So they're not doing that province-wide right now. But he was asked about, how many. He said keep your gathering small, and he was asked how small is small. Like, I think people want, tell us what to do, what number, what's okay, what's not. Yeah. But again, he can't really dictate what every family's situation is going to be and what's okay for every family. It depends if people are vaccinated or not vaccinated, if people are elderly, if they're immunocompromised. So every family is going to have their own situation. Every family needs to make their own decision. But he even advised, if you are having people indoors, if they're elderly, wear a mask, even though you're indoors and everyone might be vaccinated. It's just another layer of protection. I know a lot of people, even within my own circles, are talking about the idea of rapid tests and doing those before a holiday dinner, perhaps. And Christine Moore, I just want to highlight that Christine Elliott got a question about why aren't rapid tests being handed out in daycares the way they are in schools. We know the government did purchase 11 million tests to send home with every student in a public school in Ontario for the holidays. A box of 5 tests are going home, but not with kids in daycare, which are also obviously congregate settings with a lot of little kids who can't be vaccinated yet. So she was asked why tests aren't being provided in daycares, and she avoided the question and just said, promoted the holiday testing blitz that the government is planning, which involves pop-up testing for asymptomatic people in places like shopping malls and holiday markets. And she was saying there'll be ample opportunity for people to bring their little ones to get tested, I think is what she said. But I don't know if parents would be comfortable bringing their little kids to a crowded holiday market to get a pop-up test or to get a test there. They'd probably prefer if they could be given those tests for free at their daycare center. So there wasn't really a good answer to that. The government has been under pressure lately, facing questions in the legislature here about making rapid tests more widely available in Ontario. But so far they've been resisting, handing them out on street corners and making them available to everyone. They have handed out more than 34 million tests, they say, in recent weeks to workplaces. Businesses can apply to get the tests from the government for free for their employees. They're being provided to hospitals and schools. But there does seem to be an appetite for them elsewhere. The other piece of news, just in terms of, not to do with the holidays, but in terms of booster shots, Andrew, we should mention and talk about that. They did announce in that news conference also that starting on January 4th, it'll open up to people 18 and above to book their third doses. You can only book third doses if you're 6 months out from your second dose. But to your question earlier, before we went to the live news conference, why aren't they opening it up now? Dr. Kieran Moore again did say that they're focusing first on the most vulnerable, which is why it's available to older people in Ontario right now for their first doses. On Monday, it opens up to people 50 and above. And he did mention a capacity issue. So that sort of answers your question as to why it's not opening up right now to everyone. He said they're looking at increasing their capacity to deliver more vaccines. Right now, they're doing about 70,000 doses per day. He said they'd like to get that up even higher to 100,000 or more a day. They are doing 5 to 11-year-olds now. They're still trying to cover the population that hasn't even gotten one dose or their second dose, and now we're on round 3 for populations 2. When they open it up on Monday to 15 and above, that's 5 million more Ontarians that would be eligible for that dose. So there's a lot of balls in the air. They're trying to juggle and do all these vaccinations as well as the flu shot campaign as well. But that is important for people to know that early in the new year, it will open up to 18 and above, everyone in Ontario.
All right, Megan, thank you. Lots to cover. CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick live in Toronto.